there are scientists who have created these processed products, and their job is specifically to figure out how to make things more addictive. The once you pop, you can't stop is by design.
I like that you believe in food addiction. Do you think for some people, though, it's so strong that they might still have because I'm thinking of people I've known that seem to have a pretty strong why and reason to live, but the addiction was so strong it still got them at the end.
Yes, it is a real addiction. And I worked in addiction medicine for years, working with people who have addiction to, crack and methamphetamines and other types of drugs, right? Even prescription pain medicines, things like that. And in my experience, people with food addiction have all of the same symptoms, and it's more deadly because out of all of the people in this world, the main cause of death is not cocaine addiction or cigarette addiction or methamphetamine addiction. It's food addiction, right? Heart disease. So it is 100% an addiction, and the symptoms are the same, right? Even with drug addicts, they have the same pattern. They can give you a good 2 weeks before they start falling back, right? Because that's also long enough to feel all the feelings that you were pushing away, right? All these different things happen, and that's another part of it. So I treat people with food addiction as addicts in terms of the high level of support they need. So they need the same level of support. One, to acknowledge it. I do not let them use, for example, romantic language around food. So for example, someone would say like, I really want to get healthy, but I love cheese. I'm like, no, you don't. No, you don't. You're addicted to cheese. Love is something we all want in this world. So none of us are going to give up love, right? I don't want to give up love. Love is everything. But addiction requires intervention. So we don't use romantic language. We don't say, I'm a foodie. Oh, that's cute. You're killing yourself with food. You're not a foodie. That's an addiction, right? So I very much cut into the psychology of it because how we talk to ourselves affects how the decisions we make. And so unconsciously and consciously, I'm in there. And it's one of the reasons I've been successful in helping people with this is I recognize the language of that addiction and I interrupt it. This is an addiction. This is not love. If it was, then you're in an abusive relationship because I can tell you the cheese doesn't love you back. So if you're in love with a partner who's beating you and is almost killing you by beating you to death, is that love or is that abuse? Is that codependency? Whatever it is, it requires intervention. So it's really important to treat it as an addiction. So what do? One, no romantic language around it. Two, you got to get it away from you. An alcoholic cannot keep beer in the fridge for guests. And if your roommate is an alcoholic, then you don't keep beer in the fridge. So they need to have conversations with their families. I had a lady I just talked to, she's not willing to ask her family not to buy that junk because I'm like, it's not good for them either. But she got a lockbox so they can put a lock on it where she doesn't know the code. Okay, right? But you actually have to treat it as an addiction. So you make sure it's not handy where you can get it. You tell your friends and family. What do? I used to attend the anonymous meetings when I was in training to learn about what they teach and to learn how to provide support. First thing you have to do is admit it. Say you're an alcoholic or an addict, right? So you have to let people know. Because if you don't tell people, then they're going to keep offering it to you. And if you're in a good place, you'll say no. And if you're feeling depressed or anxious or whatever that day, you might say yes. Now you've reset your taste buds, your addiction, you're back to square one. Not square one, because as long as you're still trying, you're on the board, right? But it's like chutes and ladders, right? Sometimes you go down to shoot and sometimes you're back up the ladder, but you got to stay on the board. So all these different things that I would do in addiction for drugs, we do that with addiction for food. You have to be open about it. And when you're going to a party, say, listen, I'm trying to overcome my food addiction, my sugar addiction. Please do not offer me anything. I'm going to bring my food. I need your support. So asking people for support and telling them what support looks like, because some people think they're being supportive if they say, oh, you've been good, have a little. No, I can't have a little, or I'm going to eat all of it. And then I'm going to feel shame to myself. And then I'm going to get depressed. I'm going to go back. So in all these different ways, we need to treat it like an addiction. Now, once somebody is well and they feel good and we've dealt with the trauma and the depression and the anxiety, they felt the success, they got their results, then maybe they can start going in those places, right? Like I have a friend who's an alcoholic who hasn't drank in like 20 years, but we went to Vegas together. We went and saw the Michael Jackson show and all that kind of stuff, but he can be in that environment without cravings. But he has been away from it for so long. He doesn't want it. He's happy with his life, right? But if he had just stopped drinking, oh my goodness, that would not be the right city, right? So yeah, I think we have to take more care and stop making it seem like it's just about willpower or motivation alone. But there are scientists who have created these processed products, and their job is specifically to figure out how to make things more addictive. What is the right chemistry of salt, sugar, oil to make something so irresistible and to trigger so much release of dopamine in the brain, it's like you just gave them heroin and they need to go back. The once you pop, you can't stop is by design. So it's not about our own failures as humans, but about being really duped and harmed by industry and by the lack of intervention even of our own medical system to intervene so people can know how to feed themselves correctly and how to avoid these traps. So most folks I meet are addicted for sure, and it wasn't their fault, and yet still they're the only ones who can do something about it.